So I've been putting this video off for quite a while now, more specifically, maybe 1 or 2 years ago. I would say here and there that I always wanted to make an Illumination video because I feel like Illumination, even nowadays, is still well talked about within this little animation community. But I always put it off because there's just other things that I would rather talk about. And even though Illumination doesn't really have any major movies coming up soon, I feel like might as well be the perfect time to say it because it's either now or never. Many of you by now probably already know about the whole news regarding Despicable Me and how they treat the girls and how they're going to make their movies from here on out. More specifically, how they are not planning to make the girls age anytime soon. Although after that there has been news that maybe that they are open to the idea after some time thinking about it. But it was that news that really tipped me off and really pushed me to making an Illumination video. Specifically with Despicable Me. And while talking about the girls was my initial plan, I decided to just talk about my problems with Despicable Me in general and see where it can actually go in terms of storytelling later on. Again, we don't know what other Despicable Me movies they have in stock for us. I'm aware of their timeline posts of what future movies that they could have, but I'm pretty sure they're not canon, or at least they're highly unlikely uncanon because, look at these titles. So this is just what I personally want. You're allowed to disagree with me all you want. But considering the topic of last video with Tangled the series and what I liked about it, maybe Illumination could benefit by branching out to other ideas when it comes to Despicable Me as a franchise. So let's talk about that in this video. I would like to preface this video by saying that this video will be unscripted for the sake of time. I know it's been a while since I did a video unscripted, and I do have bullet points in front of me so then my points can flow better when I talk, but I just want to give you a heads up that if I do stumble up in my words, then apologies. So consider this as just a little discussion about Despicable Me because I feel like this is the best way I can really talk about my feelings about Despicable Me and Illumination as a whole. And there won't be much up on screen except maybe the occasional screenshots of points that I'm making. So if you just want to listen to me talk, then this is the video for you. So contrary to popular belief, I actually quite like Despicable Me. It's not one of my favorite movies of all time, but I certainly have fun every time I revisit them. And in order to make this video, I did revisit the first 2 movies. Because I haven't seen those in a while as opposed to Despicable Me 3 and 4. So when I went to look back at Despicable Me 1 and 2, I genuinely had a good time with both of them. Probably not a big surprise for the first Despicable Me because it's kind of unanimously considered the best of the franchise. And I certainly understand where people are coming from. It's that movie where I feel like we truly get to know the characters, Gru and the girls. And I feel like it focused on them much more and given an appropriate amount of screen time for all of them. And that's when they, didn't really know what the minions could be. And while I actually don't hate the minions at all and actually kind of find them quite funny at times, I do understand the complaints of how they kind of take over most of the movies from here on out. And that's because of popularity, and I guess Illumination realized how popular they could be. So they kind of make them overstay their welcome to the point where they even got their own spin-off movies. We're not going to talk about those too much in this video, but just thought I'd mention that. But overall, the first Despicable Me, the problem isn't there. And if anything, I actually quite like Gru and the girls. I actually quite like them as characters. I like Gru and his self-growth in this movie, where he learns to be more of a family man, as opposed to trying to prove to the world that he is this awesome supervillain. And from here on out, I don't think he's very villainous. Yeah, he does do some quite asshole and jerky things throughout the rest of these movies, but that's kind of the neat thing about him. Yeah, he could be cynical, but overall he's a family man because he found these little girls that were able to appreciate him and value him for his talents. I know realistically these children would probably be terrified. I mean, I don't know, if I was adopted by some tall old guy with like a bunch of yellow Twinkies running around, I'd probably be terrified. But you are able to suspend your disbelief enough to the point where, yeah, these kids like Gru's mayhem, like, why not? So yeah, the whole family dynamic is honestly the most strong suit of the franchise, especially within these first two movies. In the second movie, it's more about Gru and Lucy, and it's nice to see Gru connect to someone who is around his age, and even starts to date her, and they became, you know, their own family of their own. And I actually quite like Lucy. I don't know the general consensus of what people think about Lucy, but I personally like her. After all, the girls deserve a mother figure in their life. I mean, they don't have to, but it's clear throughout the movie that they would like one, especially Agnes, and she's quite excited to see Gru connect with a woman. Speaking of the girls, I quite like the girls, and I remember as a kid, I really liked them just because, I don't know, like, the way they react in this movie is pretty much how any kid would react. If anything, I have to give props to Illumination, especially in these first two movies, of how they wrote the girls, because they're actually quite accurate in their portrayal as real kids. There's only a handful of child characters that I feel act most accurately to real life kids, and these girls are one of them, and I quite like that. Like I said, we can suspend our disbelief in them, you know, not being terrified of Gru and his, you know, cynical antics. So yeah, neat stuff. Overall, it's the family dynamics that really stood out to me in the Despicable Me franchise. They're overall the best part of the franchise, and you can see that Gru and the girls have a special relationship and that they are truly a family. From the big moments of sacrifice Gru does for the girls, and the girls' willingness to help Gru or just to appreciate his company. And even though they're not quite as strong as these first two movies, the little moments of connection that the girls have with Gru from Despicable Me 3 and 4 are by far the best parts of those movies as well. When the movies get serious and heartwarming, they get serious and heartwarming, and I appreciated that. Just goes to show that when given the time and given the opportunity to, Illumination movies can be both funny and heartwarming. Alright, so this is where I start to get critical. So, why the rest of the franchise fails, at least from my perspective. So, basically, I feel like it's from Despicable Me 3 onwards is when the franchise starts to lose its plot. And what I mean by this is that, you know how I said how the family dynamics in the first two movies were the strongest points of this franchise? Well, even though in the third Despicable Me it was still there, it wasn't as present as the previous two. Just to summarize a bit of the third Despicable Me, it's about Gru having a secret brother named Drew, and apparently he was separated from him shortly after their parents were divorced, and he goes to visit him and realizes that Drew is actually a successful villain, and he wants Gru to join him back, even though Gru has left his life of villainy behind after he met the girls and married Lucy. Now, I don't know if maybe this movie just called for a different direction or a different writing team in order to make a crazy plot like this work, but there are several reasons why this whole thing bothered me. First of all, Gru having a secret brother, it's usually a plot I don't like. Keyword usually, because I know some of you are probably going to backfire me with the Trolls 3 arguments and saying how I like that movie, and this is sort of contradictory. But the reason why I feel like movies such as Trolls 3 works when it comes to having secret siblings is because these siblings are actually like kind of, I guess, more distinct in their personalities. I loved Branch's brothers because they were super distinct in their personalities. Each of them were pretty different. And Viva was somewhat different from Poppy, and it was different enough to the point where she was interesting. Yeah, they have basically similar personalities. It was her backstory and upbringing that made her different from Poppy. Plus, you can say that Viva helped Poppy as a character grow to understand what it's like to have a sibling, and also, when you think about it, she kind of has relevance to the overall story when it comes to Peppy and the trolls escaping the Bergens. And while you could argue that Drew kind of helps Gru with his family arc and continuing to grow in that aspect, Lucy and the girls already kind of do that for him, so Drew was kind of unneeded in that aspect. And when it comes to them as people, yeah, their personalities are different, but Drew as a person is basically Gru but before. And while this could have worked, Drew himself never really grows throughout the movie besides, him and Gru getting along. And overall, just Drew isn't a really necessary character in the grand scheme of things. The other reason is because there's so many plots in this movie, which is just a general problem that I have with more recent Illumination movies. The fact that a lot of these movies have just so many plots for their characters, it really bothers me. It's like as if you get these like little mini movies that Illumination has been doing for a lot of their movies in the beginning when it comes to their theatrical releases, and just jumble them all together to just make a whole movie. Now, I hate this approach for several reasons, but the biggest reason why I hate this is because of the consequences of it. Because of Illumination doing this, we don't really see the characters spending time with each other. In Despicable Me 3, we see Gru and Drew doing their own thing. However, we don't see Gru with the girls as much. Now, it isn't very offensively to that point in this third movie, but it's especially offensive in the fourth movie. But in this third movie, like I said before, the best part of this movie was when Gru interacted with the girls. Yeah, it was very infrequent, and it mostly just wants to spend time with a character that we probably will never see again, which we don't, at least in the fourth movie. And it subtracts the time that we have with this family that we actually grew to care about. However, another reason why it isn't as offensive as it is in the fourth movie is because this allows an opportunity for the girls to get to know Lucy. So at the very least, something was done about the family dynamics in this movie. And yeah, Lucy's a newer character, but it makes sense for her to spend some time with the girls. And I really like her and Margot's little dynamic, especially when Lucy tries to stand up for Margot against that lady after she rejects the boy that has a crush on her. And yeah, that moment was sweet because it shows that Lucy does care about these girls and really wants to try her best to be a good mother figure. And she ends up being a good mother figure, at least according to the girls, because Margot calls her mother later on in the movie. And I thought that moment was really sweet. So to Despicable Me 3's credit, I will at least give props to that. However, when it comes to, Gru and the girls, yeah, those scenes were very much lacking. But they were not as lacking as Despicable Me 4, where everything was just, I feel like, was a mess in the fourth movie, because this is when the whole side plot thing really started to overstay its welcome. Because none of the plots really have to do anything with each other. With the kids going to karate class, which I don't see how that's interesting at all, especially because we don't see Edith and Agnes too much in this movie. Gru has a son, apparently. That could have some interesting ideas for stories when it comes to him and the other girls, because, well, if you don't know, the girls are adopted, and Gru Jr. is not adopted, and Gru and Lucy, had him naturally, to say the least. So, this could have been an interesting story to get into, but no, we did not go into that. Lucy gets a job at a hairstyling salon, which overall this whole movie is just the family going undercover, but it doesn't really amount to anything. We're just seeing all these people just going on shenanigans for the sake of shenanigans, and nothing that has to do with anything with each other. And this movie was just easily my least favorite of the franchise, because clearly the movies don't know what to do with these characters anymore. Even though this movie actually does present something that could have been delved into, like, how do the girls feel about Gru and Lucy having a biological child? Does that affect a relationship in any way, either positively or negatively? New family themes. That could have, arose some stories from that, but they didn't really go through with that. In fact, I don't even understand the whole existence of Gru Jr. He isn't very entertaining, which I guess he's a baby, so I guess I should be fair. But also, you don't really believe him and Gru's relationship, because we barely even see moments of them bonding. Yeah, Gru brings him along to his little heist with Poppy, but it doesn't really amount to anything. We don't see them interact. So yeah, clearly the franchise doesn't know what to do with these characters anymore, and anytime they do introduce new ones, they don't know what to do with them either. And like I said, all of these could like make stories for a good family story, but it doesn't. And I feel like that's just Despicable Me's biggest problem. They just don't know what to do with them anymore. And it's a shame because we grew to love this family and we love to see more about them, but we don't. And that's what's upsetting. So how would I personally fix this? Well, I advise Illumination to possibly branch out to other methods of telling their story. And by that I mean probably taking a break from theatrical releases. Because like I said earlier, movies from Illumination nowadays kind of feel like as if you just combined a bunch of mini movies together and there you go, your theatrical movie for the year. But this sort of gave me an idea. Illumination has made many movies in the past, and I have seen quite a few of them. And while they're not perfect, they're not supposed to be, because, they're just there for the characters to just do their simple shenanigans, and that's that. And there's nothing wrong with it. They're pretty much harmless. And this really worked for the Minions, especially because I guess, the Minions are just, funny in general. So while it worked for them, why not try it with the rest of the family? I know we got that Vector short a while back. I haven't seen it, nor have I heard anybody talk about it, which if you did, let me know what you think. However, this doesn't mean that that they shouldn't try mini movies on other characters. Yeah, it worked for the Minions, but experiment with the other characters. Like, they're your characters, you can literally do whatever you want. And yeah, you can add the Minions if you feel so inclined to do so, but seriously, let the other characters have their moment to shine as well. And if not mini movies, maybe I also suggest a show? In my last video, in case you haven't seen it, I talked about Tangled the series, which I felt was a really good show and it really added on to the original movie. And I also explained how I think shows in general are really good outlets for a movie if you want to continue its story without really having a theatrical release. Besides, shows have a bit more liberty for writers to really do whatever they want with the characters, as they couldn't really do so in the original movie. And while I'm not saying that Illumination should be doing this, nor am I saying if they do go through with it, they should do exactly what Tangled the series did, where there's all this crazy lore stuff and they go on an epic quest and have an overarching story. No, they don't have to do that. But it wouldn't hurt to at least experiment with that and, maybe even get a slice of life show where the characters just do whatever they want each episode. Sort of an episode of SpongeBob or Phineas and Ferb where it's not really a consistent story, but it's just kind of episodic. That way you can have some liberties with your characters while also having a lot of fun with it. Plus, you're making more content for your franchise either way. So you're still making that cash at the end of the day if that's what you really want to do so. And if you do want to go with the whole overarching story thing, then you could, but just make sure that it fits with the overall world building and characters. I mean, this is a world where villains basically roam free, so maybe there could be some story potential with that. Story potential that can fit in the world of Despicable Me, while also keeping that overarching story in that plot of yours. Either way, all I'm saying is mini movies, a show, or whatever you wish to do with your franchise, the possibilities are pretty much endless with what you can do with them. You don't have to make a full-length movie in order to continue your franchise, especially when your ideas don't really go anywhere. I suggest that overall Illumination should try branching out to other ideas besides theatrical releases. Who knows, it could be just as successful as the movies that they have today. I would like to end this video off with this last section when it comes to Illumination and taking risks. So I brought up in the beginning of this video saying how Illumination not wanting to age up the girls was basically the inspiration of this video, and how Illumination just basically wants to stick to its status quo. And it's the news about the girls that really made me realize this, upon also watching Despicable Me 4, of course. Illumination prefers to stick to what works, so not aging up the girls, having the story stick to its status quo, especially when it comes to its characters, and even more especially just overall relying on the minions because that's pretty much their cash cows for this company. Chris Meledandri even says how strict cost controls in animated films are not mutually exclusive, meaning that not every single animated movie has to be super costly in order to become a hit. And while I do kind of respect their movie formula and their marketing strategies because it's genuinely kind of working for them, so you gotta respect the hustle, I guess. And especially because nowadays Illumination isn't the only ones guilty for this when it comes to low risks in their animated movies. I mean, look at Disney, they're having a creative fallout as of right now. But that just goes to show, just like how I advise Disney to really try to experiment with their creative team and seeing what else could work, I also advise the same thing for Illumination, to really experiment more. I mean, the whole reason why the Despicable Me franchise even exists in the first place was because they took that risk in their storytelling. If they never went ahead and made the movie, they wouldn't have the massive franchise that they have today. So what happens if the girls were to age? What happens if they make the story have its changes that maybe it so desperately needs? If Illumination really is reconsidering their stance on aging the girls or not, really think about what this can do with the story. Like I said many times before in this video, it was their family dynamics and family themes throughout the first two movies that really made it shine. Maybe it's these changes that the story really needs in order to continue to highlight the family themes in these movies, because like I said, it was their strong suit. And they don't have to sacrifice the minions in order to do this. Yes, you can't have a Despicable Me movie without those little yellow Twinkies, but the minions are honestly at their best in their first Despicable Me movie, being silly but not taking up too much screen time in order to take away from that screen time that could be used on the family that we know to love. Overall, what I'm trying to say is taking risks isn't a bad thing. Am I saying that you should make a giant leap of faith? You don't have to, but maybe start with something small and making the girls age up just a little bit, and let's see what happens from there. Obviously, this little video of mine isn't going to convince, a high corporation of anything, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to stick around. Already on the train, have been for quite a while now, so it probably won't hurt to see where it goes. Thank you all for watching. I've been wanting to talk about Despicable Me and my thoughts about it for a while, and I'm finally glad that I got to be able to. Tell me your thoughts about this video. Did you agree with my points? Disagree with my points? And while you're at it, tell me what your favorite Illumination movie is. Heck, what's your favorite Despicable Me movie? Or Minions movie if you feel so inclined to tell me so. Like always, I love hearing what you guys have to say, so don't hesitate to do so in the comments. Anyways, this is the Winged Unicorn, and I'm about to fly away. See you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!